Welcome to Hushed History. Tonight, we move into the deep, dark waters of the southern Indian Ocean to trace the final, silent path of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. It has been 12 years since the world lost sight of the Boeing 777. But as we sit here in 2026, the silence is finally being broken not by a voice, but by a ghost in the radio waves. This mystery has defined a generation of aviation, leaving a void where a massive aircraft once flew. We are now entering a new era of discovery. The questions that have haunted us for over a decade are finally beginning to find their answers in the digital remains of the past. March 8th, 2014. Kuala Lumpur International Airport is alive with the hum of midnight departures. 239 souls board a silver bird bound for Beijing. Families are sleeping. Business travelers are finishing their last notes. The atmosphere is routine, calm, and predictable. There is no hint of the tragedy that is about to unfold. There is only the steady rhythm of an international hub in the middle of the night. Imagine the cabin. The dimming of the overhead lights. The soft clicking of seat belts. The steady hum of the engines. At 1:19 a.m., as the plane reaches the edge of Malaysian airspace, a calm voice speaks the final words ever heard from the cockpit. Good night, Malaysian 370. Seconds later, the transponder is manually switched off. The plane does not crash. It does not explode. It simply disappears from the digital world. It becomes a shadow, turning sharply back toward the west, flying over the Malacca Strait as a primary radar blip, a nameless, faceless intruder in the night sky. For over an hour, it crosses back over the peninsula, dancing between the borders of nations that do not realize what is flying above them. It is a ghost in the machine, moving through the dark with a purpose we still do not fully understand. For years, we searched the surface. We looked for debris. We looked for oil slicks. But in 2026, our understanding has shifted to the invisible web. There is a technology called WSP, our Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. spiderweb of low-power radio signals crisscrossing the planet at all times. When a massive object like a Boeing 777 passes through these signals, it creates a tripwire effect. It disturbs the web. These signals were never meant to track aircraft, but they did. They recorded the silent passage of the plane long after the radar went dark. We are now looking at the data from that night, and we can see the disturbances. Every movement, every turn, and every altitude change left a mark on this global network. It is a trail of breadcrumbs made of radio waves, leading us deeper into the unknown. The WSPR records show the plane did not just fly straight. It performed a series of zigzags as if hiding before turning south into the seventh arc. It was a cold, calculated journey into the most remote part of our planet. The data suggests the aircraft was being piloted with precision, following a path that avoided detection until it was over the vast emptiness of the southern Indian Ocean. The complexity of these maneuvers suggests a level of control that defies simple explanation. As we speak, the ships of Ocean Infinity are back in the southern Indian Ocean. They are using the Armada, a fleet of autonomous, robotic underwater vehicles. They are descending 6,000 meters. They are moving through a world of total darkness and immense cold. Down where the light never reaches. Down where the pressure would crush a human heart. They are scanning the broken ridge, an underwater mountain range of jagged peaks and deep silt. The 2026 search area is narrow, focused on the coordinates 34.5 degrees south, 93.5 degrees east. This is a place where the earth itself is scarred and broken, hidden beneath miles of crushing water. The WSPR tripwires suggest the plane spiraled here, out of fuel, gliding silently into the abyss in a controlled ditching. But questions remain for those of us who look at the fringes of history. Why did the military radar in two different countries see unidentified movements that night? Why did the plane's electrical system reboot mid-flight, sending a lone log-on request to a satellite? Some say it was a tragedy of human will. Others point to the strange blips on the radar that should not have been there. We must consider the possibility that something else was in the sky that night. Something that influenced the path of the flight. The mystery of MH370 is not just about a missing plane, but about the limits of our own technology and the shadows that still exist in our world. As the robotic eyes of the 2026 mission crawl across the seafloor, we wait. We wait for a glint of aluminum in the silt. We wait for the black boxes that have been silent for over a decade. We wait for the truth that has been hidden under miles of water. Every inch of the seabed is a page in a book we are only just learning to read. But as the search deepens, we must look closer at those final hours in the cockpit. We must look at the man behind the controls and the strange anomalies that suggest this was no ordinary flight path. Because while the ocean holds the wreckage, the data holds the intent. To understand the path that led to the silent abyss, we must look at the man who held the controls. Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah was a veteran with 18,000 flight hours. He was a man who loved flying so much that he built a professional-grade flight simulator in his own home. This is where the digital ghost begins to take shape. In the weeks after the disappearance, investigators recovered the hard drives from that home simulator. What they found was a series of deleted flight paths. One of those paths was a chilling mirror to the journey MH370 would take on that final night. It showed a flight departing Kuala Lumpur, heading north, and then making a sharp, banking turn into the southern Indian Ocean. It ended in the exact same remote waters where the search is focused today. Is it possible to practice a disappearance? To rehearse the moment you slip away from the world? The simulator data was not a perfect match, but the intent was there, a line drawn into the deep. This brings us to the most debated moment of the flight, the cabin pressure. Some experts believe that shortly after the transponder was cut, the plane was intentionally depressurized at 40,000 feet. At that altitude, the oxygen in the cabin would vanish in seconds. For the passengers, it would feel like a wave of sudden, heavy sleep. Hypoxia is a quiet thief. It takes your breath and your consciousness before you even realize something is wrong. Within minutes, the cabin would have been a silent tomb while the plane continued to fly on autopilot, guided by a hand that still had a supply of oxygen in the cockpit. But if the goal was a simple tragedy, why did the plane keep flying for over 7 hours? This is where the 2026 WSPR data reveals a terrifying level of precision. The disturbances in the radio waves show the aircraft weaving through the gaps in Indonesian and Australian radar coverage. It was not a ghost ship drifting aimlessly. It was being flown along the edges of the maps, hiding in the blind spots of the world's most advanced surveillance systems. As the aircraft reached the southern arc, it entered a region known as the Roaring Forties. The winds here are brutal, and the ocean beneath is 4 miles deep. The data suggests that at the very end, as the fuel tanks ran dry, the plane was not left to fall. A Boeing 777 is a masterpiece of engineering. Even without engines, it can glide for nearly 100 miles. The WSPR tripwires indicate a controlled descent, a smooth entry into the water designed to keep the airframe intact and minimize debris. This would explain why, for over a decade, so little of the plane has ever been found. It was tucked away, placed carefully into the deep. As the ships of the 2026 search mission move their sensors over the broken ridge, they are looking for a needle in a graveyard of mountains. The seafloor here is a landscape of volcanic trenches and massive canyons that have never seen the sun. Every time a sonar ping returns an anomaly, the world holds its breath. We are looking for the moment the metal meets the silt. even if we find the engines and the wings, the ultimate mystery remains locked in the cockpit. We have to ask ourselves, what was the final thought of the person who saw the sun rise over the Indian Ocean, knowing they were the last soul awake on a flight to nowhere? The answer isn't in the water. It is in the patterns left behind in the radio waves and the digital shadows of a home simulator. The more we look at the precision of the flight path, the more we see a plan that was executed with haunting perfection. It was a journey designed to be a permanent secret. But in 2026, the technology of the future is finally catching up to the secrets of the past. The search for truth in the deep ocean is not just a quest for metal and machinery. It is a quest for the final moments of 239 lives that vanished into a digital silence. As we move into the final phase of the 2026 mission, the focus has shifted from the broad ocean to a very specific, jagged scar on the seafloor known as the Geelvink Fracture Zone. This is where the radio wave tripwires of the WSPR data overlap with the last known satellite handshakes. Perhaps you have wondered how a giant of the skies can simply cease to exist in an age of constant connectivity. The answer lies in the terrifying scale of our own planet. The southern Indian Ocean is a place of absolute isolation. Below the waves, the terrain is more rugged than the Himalayas. There are canyons so deep they could swallow a dozen aircraft and hide them under layers of ancient silt. The robotic eyes of the current search must glide just meters above this treacherous floor, looking for a glint of white paint or the heavy, dense shadow of a jet engine. Every sonar ping sent from the Armada fleet is a message to the past. In 2026, the technology has reached a point where we can recreate the final descent with haunting accuracy. Experts now believe that, as the right engine flamed out, followed minutes later by the left, the aircraft did not simply drop. The data suggests a final, desperate glide. Imagine the cockpit in those last minutes. The warning lights flickering in the dark. silence of the engines were replaced only by the rush of wind against the glass. If the plane was ditched as a single piece, it would have slipped beneath the swells like a sinking stone, settling into a valley where the currents are still. This would explain the lack of a debris field. It was not a crash. It was an entry. This is why the 2026 search is focusing on the deep trenches that act as natural containers. If the flight recorders are found, they will be encased in a layer of salt and mineral preserved by the very pressure that keeps us away. But beyond the physics and the geography, there is the mystery of the why. We have looked at the simulator and the radio ghosts, but we must also consider the anomalies that defy every standard explanation. Perhaps you recall the reports of the cargo, the tons of lithium-ion batteries and mangostines that some theorists believe could have caused a slow-burning, toxic fire. Yet, a fire does not usually lead to a series of tactical, radar-evading turns. A fire does not explain why the plane waited until the exact moment of a frequency handoff to go dark. The more we peel back the layers of MH370, the more we realize that this story is a mirror. It reflects our own fears about the technology we trust and the vast, untamable reaches of the Earth. As the 2026 search continues to scan the silence of the broken ridge, we are reminded that some secrets are guarded by the weight of the entire ocean. We are looking for a needle, but we are also looking for peace for the families who have spent over a decade staring at a horizon that never brought their loved ones home. Perhaps you feel the weight of this story as much as those who spend their lives trying to solve it. The truth is down there, resting in the cold, waiting for the light of a robotic camera to finally break the darkness of 12 long years. We are closer now than we have ever been. The invisible web has given us the map, and the Armada has given us the eyes. Now, all that remains is the final discovery. If this journey into the mysteries of our past has captivated you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to continue digging into the hushed history of our world and bringing these unexplained stories to light. Perhaps you have your own theory on what truly happened in those final hours over the Ark. If so, share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time.